G'day, Eric Bakker here, naturopath, author of Candida Crusher. Just wanted to do a quick video today regarding why my program would be good for you to get if you've got a chronic yeast infection. What sets my program apart from the rest? Why is it different? What are some of the things that you need to take into account when you get all these other ebooks on yeast infections? You know, there's like millions of them online. So how do you know I'm not just selling you a bunch of baloney like a lot of these books are? Well, I've studied yeast infections now for 25 years. These are some of my books on yeast infection up here. I've got about 2,000 books on natural health in my room, a lot of diet books, and probably about 100 books on Candida. I think I've referenced about 50 or 60 in my Candida Crusher book. I've got about 15 ebooks on yeast infections. I find most of the books keep rehashing the same information. And most of the books, if not all of the ebooks, are written by people who've actually had a yeast infection, but never actually treated patients in a clinical setting with a yeast infection. They weren't clinicians, they weren't doctors. They were basically just people who lived at home, got sick, treated their yeast infection, and then became instant experts in this whole area. So the difference with Candida Crusher and all these other ebooks, for example, is I've treated over 15,000 people with yeast infections spanning a 25-year period. That's quite a long time, and that's quite a lot of people. So I've built up a reasonably good amount of clinical skills over these years. So how do you know this book's going to be any good for you? Are you going to get cured using this book? Well, I don't like using the cured word, but I would put it to you, what are you going to do with the information in my book, more likely? Because I find there are three types of patients that I tend to see in my clinic. Patient number one is going to look at the information I present to them, have a good think about it, and make the changes that are necessary to get on top of their yeast infection. They're going to make the right lifestyle changes and dietary changes. They're going to take dietary supplements in regularly. They're going to come back regularly to my clinic for follow-up. They're going to ask me questions. We're going to be able to track and measure and test their results to see if they're on track, and maybe gently nudge them back on track again. And these are the patients that recover from a yeast infection. These make up about 60% of the people I see. My reputation's built on results. Results are the main things that get me work. I don't really market. I write and research, and I treat patients. And if I get good results, I'm going to get patients. If I get crap results, I'm not going to get patients. And I've got plenty of patients, so I must be getting reasonable results. The second group of people are people that we see also quite frequently. They would make up about 25, maybe 30% of people we see in a clinical setting. These are people who come in. They sometimes don't make the follow-up visit. They will listen to your advice, but they seem to be always too busy to eat the right kind of foods or do any exercise. They're always on the computer. They're always out partying or doing things, and health is sort of a priority for them, but not really as much as a priority as it is for the first category. They do take supplements, but they forget to take them here or there, and they're always in a hurry. They're busy people. You think they get results? Well, they do. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them become category 1 patient, and some of them drop out never to return. I guess it's because their symptoms weren't bad enough, really, for them to really want to commit to making the change necessary to get the result. So the third category, unfortunately, are people that see me once and we don't see them again. These are people who are after the quick fixes. These are people who fall for scams like the 12-hour yeast cure. These are people who want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to keep on drinking booze. They want to keep on eating chocky bars. They want to keep on having all those sugary cereals. They don't take their health seriously. And as Dr. Wilson used to say to me, if you don't take your health seriously, just take it somewhere else. Just go and see another doctor. We call these patients doctor hoppers. They hop from one patient, from one doctor to another. They complain about all the doctors that can't cure them, but they don't want to make any darn changes themselves to get well. So those aren't the patients I want. So I say to a patient when they come in, are you going to be 1, 2, or 3? It's as simple as that. So why is my book different? Why should you buy this book? What makes the Candida Crusher a cut above a lot of that other stuff out there online? Well, there are a couple of points here I've got on my screen I'm going to read out to you, and this is what sets my book apart from all those other yeast infection books. A comprehensive, fully clickable 23-page table of contents in the front. So it's an ebook. You can click to anywhere in the book. More than 25 comprehensive case studies. A whole chapter devoted to quick solutions called the Quick Start Guide. That's chapter 4. A 3-stage fast relief program for men, women. A whole chapter devoted to vaginal yeast infections. This is worth the price of the book alone. The most effective vaginal yeast infection treatment yet developed. It's a 2-stage protocol that just nails yeast infections time and again. Hundreds of answers to frequently asked questions. Sections that rebuke most of the myths about yeast infection. How to get the correct diagnosis. An extensive chapter on the many and varied signs and symptoms of your yeast infection. And in-depth information about medical testing of yeast infections. The most comprehensive information ever seen on Candida functional medicine testing in any book. You'll also find my comprehensive 8-home test for yeast infections, which is entirely unique information. You'll find my symptom tracker, how you can track your symptoms at home and the severity of them, and whether you're improving or getting worse. I've also got a home test tracker, so you can actually do these home tests and track them over a 16-week period to see which way you're going. There's a proven 3-stage diet, and there's 100 pages on Candida diet nutrition alone. I think it's close to 200 pages on diet nutrition in chapter 7. The link between Candida, your immune system, and stress, there's about 50 pages on this information. There's Candida detoxification and cleansing. There's 31 pages on detox. Now I think there's about 5 pages on heavy metal cleansing. The special Candida foods and the best dietary supplements to take. There's 70 pages on this alone. The best lifestyle information, over 70 pages on how to have the right lifestyle if you've got a chronic yeast infection. And there's tons of information on herbal treatments, the correct washes, cleansers. It just goes on and on and on. 718 pages. So if you've got a chronic yeast infection, this is the Bible to get. Forget a lot of these other junky books I was telling you about, because as I say, they're written by people who've never seen a patient. They grab information from the internet, whereas this information comes from my clinic after treating thousands of patients, and that's what makes the difference. And if you're not happy, you get all your money back. What do you got to lose? I don't think you want a refund on this book, because once you read this book and you use the information, you're going to nail that yeast infection. And that's why I wrote this book. I wrote this book, and the byline is called The Permanent Yeast Solution for that reason, because I want you to permanently eradicate that yeast infection once and for all. And that's worth $47. It sure is. A visit to a gynecologist for a female is going to be $500. And what is she going to get out of that? A bunch of creams and then maybe another visit. So if you want to beat this infection permanently, and you're serious about wanting to get rid of it, and you're a category 1 patient who's going to do what it takes, then this book's going to give you the result you're looking for. Thanks for your time.